Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to our panel on, what's the name of this panel? It is Policy in Motion, Developing AI Guidelines. And my name is Lynn Dickinson. I'm the panel moderator. I just get to sit up here with these esteemed gentlemen and bask in the glow of their knowledge, which is really cool because they know a lot. So I'm a full-time faculty member at Santa Monica College. I'm the author of a couple of books on AI. I have spoken, done keynotes and stuff all over the world on it, actually. And what else I do? Oh, there's a course called EDUC 50 at Santa Monica College that any professor from any college or university can take. It's called Teaching in the Age of AI, and we've been teaching it for, you enroll as a student, and it's a 3-unit class, and we've been teaching it for about 5 semesters now, and including the intersessions. And we've got faculty, we've had law professors from Drexel and faculty from USC and UCLA and all the different community colleges. So that one's been interesting because we do touch on policy in that one too for individual, because every discipline, every subject, every department is different in their AI policy needs. So we're going to talk a bit more about that here. And I want to introduce you to the panelists a little bit. I'll just say a little bit about them and then give them each a chance to introduce themselves a little bit more fully. To my immediate left, we have Rodrigo Gomez. He's an English faculty member at Miramar College in San Diego, and he's a faculty specialist for emerging technology, and boy, is he good at it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rodrigo, and like Lynn said, I teach full-time English at San Diego Miramar College. I've also been working for the last 2.5 years or so, since a lot of this mess started at the district, through the Office of Institutional Innovation and Effectiveness, just doing a lot of professional development across San Diego. And I've gone and done some presentations, keynotes, workshops, everything you can think of at this point that relates to AI and AI policy. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you, Rodrigo. And then we also have, on Rodrigo's left, Craig Hayward, the visiting executive for the Strategic Research and Innovative Design for the California Community College's Chancellor's Office. Craig, say more.
Okay, I'll say a little bit more. Yeah, that's quite the title. I've been at the California Community College Chancellor's Office for the past 2+ years. And one of the charges that the Chancellor gave me is to coordinate the Chancellor's Office engagement with AI, right? And that's one of the core directions of the Vision 2030, which is really our strategic guiding document. I'm sure everyone in the room has heard of it. And so generative AI, the future of teaching and learning, has just really taken off over the past 2.5 years, so it was very appropriate to include it at a high level in the Vision 2030. But there's a lot, it's just such a wide area that AI touches on. There's a lot of activity, a lot of other players that are involved in that space, so hence the need for coordination and policy development, which is something the field has been asking for. So in my role there, I've hosted a series of webinars on generative AI applications in higher education, and we're going to kick off a new series on September 30th of this year. And this time around, they're going to be followed by deep dives. So we'll do the usual 1-hour session Tuesdays, 12 to 1, and then on Friday we're going to do an hour and a half or 2 hours where we kind of go deeper into exploring, how to implement some of the cool technology that we highlight in the main webinar. Other related work, also one of the leaders of the Digital Center, the new innovative design and evaluation, technology-centric, equity-centric partnership between the Chancellor's Office and Foothill-De-Anza. So that's really beginning to take off as well. And then other projects like Nectar AI, pilot. Do we have anyone in the room who has participated in as a Nectar AI pilot member, other just Rodrigo? Okay, well, okay, a couple of us in here. And then Play Lab. Any Play Lab cohort members? Okay, there we go. There's the Play Lab. It's the Play Lab room. And I was in the first cohort of Play Lab as well. That's a fantastic technology. Really exciting. And then, of course, the Common Cloud, which is a kind of a 21st century data platform that thinking of as AI ready. So that's some of the things that are in my portfolio at the Chancellor's office, and a little bit about me. I have been a member of the California Community College System since 2001. My background is largely research and kind of innovative research and developing some statewide tools, things that are in the data mart like that. So that's some of my background. Let me hand it back to Lynn to continue with the introductions.
Perfect. Good job. All right. So our hero of the day, who just is rescuing us by joining the panel at the last minute, is Kevin Kelly, the Interim Executive Director of Transformation and Equity for California Community College's Digital Center for Innovation. And thank you for filling that seat. Tell us more.
How about now? Okay, hi everybody. So as Lynn mentioned, I'm Kevin Kelly. I'm the Interim Executive Director of the Digital Center that also Craig mentioned as part of his portfolio. I've been in higher ed since, I think, before time began, and so it's been a while. I like the framing that Meredith said today. These are just wisdom lines in my hair. But in some of my roles, I've been a consultant around the country for colleges and universities on a variety of things, but AI has popped up. You might have heard of it. It's a topic people are talking about. And I had the privilege to co-facilitate a summit this summer with EDUCAUSE around adopting AI and what are the challenges that the colleges around the country and universities are facing. So hopefully I can bring some of the ideas that were generated from that and some of my other work to the table. But in my role as the executive director for the Digital Center, I'm committed to partnering with the Chancellor's office to create opportunities so that the colleges don't have to work in silos, right? One of the biggest things that we're hearing is that people feel like they're reinventing wheels. They want to talk to colleagues who are doing the same work. Should we develop something like a policy or a guideline, which is better? And how long will it last if the technology keeps changing so quickly? So we'll get into that in our conversation today, but I just wanted to put out there, feel free to contact me if you're looking for ways to collaborate around policy development or at least reviewing the policies that you currently have.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. So we're going to explore some questions around policy, which we have a list of them, thanks to Craig. So let's start with, what do students, faculty, and administrators and classified professionals need to know about AI? Gentlemen. Somebody say something intelligent.
I think it's been, well, I think it's been suggested at this conference already that it's not going anywhere, and that it's here to stay, and that we're going to have to adjust, come to terms with what the technology is, and support our students by being very transparent about the things that we put into our syllabus, including AI policies. That at the bare minimum, I think, is a good way to start.
And, I'll reiterate what the Chancellor said this morning at the opening keynote session in the theater, which is we need to have an understanding that we're promoting a culture of AI literacy across the system. And I think this is where the policy conversation is headed now. And that means that there's a baseline of AI literacy. So what is AI literacy? And we do have that handy acronym, PEOPLE, to remind us of the fundamentals. And that work on that acronym came from the AI Council, which is a group of about 25 individuals from all across the system in different roles, a lot of faculty representation on that body, and it's been extremely helpful. So that's the group that developed the humans principles. but also people, which stands for prompting with purpose. That's the P. E is ethics first. O is observe and verify. This is my first public demonstration of this, so we'll see if I can actually pull it off.
So far, so good.
So far, so good, right? I just jinxed myself. What's the second P is, oh yeah. We're kind of split on this one. So the chancellor said processor, not person. AI Council, felt, well, maybe we want to say personify wisely, but that second P is really about understanding that an AI is not a sentient individual, it's not a person, and so kind of maintaining some emotional air gap between yourself and that AI for your mental health. L, learn the basics, so we don't have to be computer scientists or AI experts. Lord knows I'm not. But if you understand the fundamentals of how a GPT, an LLM works, the training, that can be very helpful to you as you become literate. And then E, committing to evolve continuously, because obviously, as we know, every week, every month, there's kind of a new advance and something new happening. And so just because something worked one way last month doesn't mean that's going to be, you can set it and forget it. So that's our people, the kind of the 6 fundamentals we feel all students, all faculty, all classified professionals, all administrators should have that. So how do we achieve that is really the question. How do we leverage policy to make AI literacy something that's real for everyone?
They've said so many great things. But so I'll pick up on some of the themes that have been brought out. A couple weeks ago, I was at San Joaquin Delta College. Any folks from Delta College here? No?
No.
They had their convocation, and I did a workshop for, I don't know, maybe 150 faculty and staff around AI. It was called AI 101. And because I'm a fan of interaction, so I passed the mic around, and a lot of them said what we heard before, AI's here to stay. But there was a clear call to action that we need to be aware of the equity challenges. And I like how Don Daves Rougeau brought it up this morning. We need the healthy skeptics in the room to help us do this responsibly. But the charge from the faculty in the room at Delta College was we cannot amplify equity barriers or digital divide. And so being conscious of that, again, with equity being in the name for the Digital Center, we'll be looking at how do we create opportunities for everybody to participate, and how do we create room for everyone to join the discussion. As someone who's taught for 25 years in my own syllabus, which I love the skit today, it was like, it's in the syllabus.
That was the best.
But it says specifically, because my class has been called How to Learn with Your Mobile Device, so I'm teaching students how to learn and how to use technology for learning purposes. And I say we're going to talk about using AI as a learning tool, but we're also going to talk about the difference between using it and abusing it, right? And so I mentioned specifically that if you use AI to write your papers, you're giving away your voice. And for some of you, that may make you sound more like a white male than you want. And so it's very important for students to be aware of kind of not only the ramifications of academic integrity and all that, but also that we want their original work, we want their voices to be heard, because that's how we make a better society, et cetera. So the conversations that Lynn kind of provoked with this prompt here, we're going to have different ones with different stakeholders. The administrators are going to be like, how do we stay ahead of this? For the students, it's like, we know you're already doing it, and then sometimes you might be doing it even if the instructor asks you not to. And in some cases, it might be questionable. So, and again, in my syllabus, I say, before you ask AI to write your paper, ask me, the teacher, for an extension and see how that works. And so when we start engaging people on our campuses and our districts and throughout the consortial regions in conversations around AI, let's be active listeners. Let's hear what the challenges people are that they perceive or are actually feeling, and then figure out ways that we can work together to keep moving forward.
Thank you, Kevin. Did you have more to add? Sure.
I'd like to respond to a couple things that Kevin brought up, and the other acronym the big acronym in the AI space and kind of AI policy and guidelines is the humans principles. And we do have a T-shirt with the humans principles on it now, so I should kind of get the website out to y'all, because I was wearing it at the AI Fellows Retreat on Monday. And it's great. It's another acronym, and the U in human stands for kind of universal access and universal design, and that gets to the point that we should not be amplifying the digital divide through the use of AI. And then that directly tracks to the announcement that Google made this morning about the MOU signing and the availability of premium level tools for all of our students in the system, which is something that Chancellor very much wants. Now, of course, that has to get turned on district by district and college by college, which means having the conversation locally about developing AI literacy at your campus. So are you ready to turn on those functions? Is this something that there is agreement on? And kind of what are the step-by-step processes to get to a place where that makes sense to do locally under local control? But that option is now available, which is incredibly exciting. And so we'll see how that starts to play out at different campuses around the state. So just wanted to kind of add that on.
Yeah, thank you, because that leads right into the next query, which is, it's very clear that we're committed to developing AI literacy. At least all of us up here are. It's like AI literacy is important, especially AI literacy around using it effectively, appropriately, ethically, and transparently. And that goes for faculty and for students. And the question then becomes, that's the what. The question then becomes how. How do we do that? So, you guys know?
I have only personal approaches to offer here, so I like the acronym focus here, so I'll share one more that I came up with for my class and how I approach AI in that room. The first thing was obviously having an AI policy on the syllabus, so the students understood that in my class they would be exposed to it. They would be using ChatGPT, Midjourney, a few other tools that we were using for graphic artwork, etc. And I give them prompts to use, so that's just up front. Then I created this thing that I was like, acronyms, right? Trust, right? We love this word. And so I said, well, you just mentioned transparency, so that's actually what the first T stands for. So it's use AI with transparency. No hiding it, on my end either, by the way. Responsibility, are you using it responsibly? What does that even mean in a conversation that we've been having here at this summit? It's absolutely clear that there is levels of usage, what we determine to be responsible or irresponsible. So whatever you determine in your classroom is part of your academic freedom. You can make that much AI be part of the class, use it responsibly based on these guidelines. We also have statewide and national guidelines. I mean, the AI is really a global conversation. So we should abide by the statewide guidelines, certainly, but it is a global conversation. So seeing that other countries, other parts of the world are looking at this technology too, you get a bigger impression on, well, what is this gonna look like in a global sense? So use it transparently, use it responsibly. Use it with understanding. That implies misusage. That implies you play a little bit to make some mistakes, right? One of my favorite teachers is Miss Frizzle. Take chances, make mistakes, get messy, absolutely. So use it with understanding of when you should and when you shouldn't. That's part of AI literacy too. Digital literacy is what it was called earlier, I agree with that. Use it with strategy. Again, that requires some higher order thinking here. I hear a lot of talk of AI diminishing critical thinking. I'm like, I don't think that has to be the case. There are strategies and approaches we could use to mitigate that, to have them use AI more strategically. And then the final one is tenacity. And I like this word because it's this grit-focused word. Be tenacious, don't give up, don't quit, try again. One of my first policies in my syllabus is that weak prompts will make for weak outputs. So we've all heard here that prompting is good to learn. It's part of this new literacy that's now being required by jobs, etc. So I would say trust your students, lead with trust, but it's not trust that comes just with nothing there. It's I gave you the tools, I gave you guidelines, I gave you frameworks, I gave you transparency and trust, and I lead with that because I hear too many conversations here about over-policing students, and unethical usage is always the default conversation. I'm like, we can have a far more critical, higher order thinking conversation too.
Thank you. I totally agree with that. It's the culture of trying to catch them for doing something wrong is just not the best, healthiest classroom feel, you know? Craig, did you have something to add to this?
Yeah, there are a lot of false positives and false negatives with that approach, and of trying to catch students out and kind of just block AI entirely. I mean, that sort of genie is out of the bottle, right? And depending which survey you look at, you'll see different levels of AI usage, but we all know it's quite prevalent among students. So, Rodrigo, let me ask, is the TRUST acronym, are you including that in your syllabus, or is that, yeah, so that would be one approach. I think that would be wonderful if we could just kind of universally understand that students need to know about your position in your classroom on the use of AI. And the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges put out a terrific paper called Academic Integrity in the Era of Artificial Intelligence. And in that document, they kind of advocate for including like a sort of a meter or a dial, right? From wide open, you know, go for it, use AI for anything, to it's okay within certain parameters, and we're going to discuss what those parameters are, to no, this is a closed, you know, there's no AI permitted in this class. And that's fine, right? Because that's academic freedom. And I think, you know, most when we have done surveys of faculty across the California Community College system, there may be some response bias in who's responding to those surveys, but it seems like the majority of folks are sort of in the open to, you know, somewhat moderated use of AI. And students need to know that, because they can get shut down when we listen to students' experiences. Like, for instance, around the Nectar AI pilot, some students are very reluctant to engage with an AI tool that that instructor's encouraging them to use, because they've been told that using AI is cheating, and we're just not being clear enough with our students. So again, I think that comes right back to what is our policy, and, you know, getting to a point where we can agree institutionally what our position is, and accepting the different kind of positionalities that need to happen vis-a-vis AI use. But just, again, transparency, I think, is a good word for that, being very transparent about what that use policy is, class by class, syllabus by syllabus, but including it in every syllabus would be a great kind of step towards achieving AI literacy.
And since my colleagues on the panel have focused heavily on thinking of the teaching and learning roles with policy, I'll step aside for a second and talk to any administrators in the room, any technology experts. So the policies that we have to consider in addition to academic integrity and things like that are data governance. This morning we heard Chancellor Christian talk about, hey, what if we could enable staff to use AI to streamline workflows, regardless of what those are, and there might be ways to investigate that. But if we just let the horses run wild out of the corral, does that mean that someone might take data sets that have personally identifiable information and throw it into something that's going to train one of the language learning models? So we need to be thinking about the different aspects of AI use across the institution, and consider, like, how does this impact student services? Right now we're about to launch a tool in the far north region with 3 rural colleges to use a multi-channel AI-based platform called Cali to support students as they apply for the college, as they register for classes, as they fill out the FAFSA, as they seek basic needs. And the thing I love about it is they might have filled out a lot of the forms, but then it'll prompt them with a text message saying, hey, you haven't registered for classes yet. Do you want to do that now? Let me tell you how. And so, to me, those are ways to approach, when you say, how do we approach AI adoption on a campus? I think it means first being inclusive. Which people need to be at the table for conversations about what does it mean that we're going to start using AI in an intentional manner, not a haphazard ad hoc way, but we're going to have maybe an overarching vision. This college is going to be in line with the Chancellor, and we're going to make sure that our students are ready for an AI-enabled workforce, but we're going to do so in a way that's responsible so that the students are learning the difference between using it to do the work and using it to streamline work, right? And so when we think about the different roles at our colleges that might interact with AI, the policy development, and again, I'll use the version policy versus guidelines, because sometimes policy means, is this a board policy? Is this an administrative procedure? Or is this something that we're telling people, we want you to adhere to this guideline because it's a best practice or effective practice, however you want to characterize it. And again, thinking about data governance, thinking about change management, because this wave of AI, right now we're in the mid stages of Gen AI and the early stages of agentic AI. Soon it'll be robotic AI, or then whatever term they'll come up with, right? So we want to start thinking about, if we're developing policies, how do we make something that fits, it's kind of future-proofed, right? So we don't have to redo this every year. We'll want to revisit our policies and see how, is there a downstream effect? If we put this in place, do we have to change other things that we've got in place in our college pantheon of words on pages? So it's really just thinking about a holistic view. But I would say, if anyone's read Charles Duhigg, the ways we can make our team better and more successful, it means diversity, making sure we have a lot of different voices in the room, and that could be age, gender, ethnicity, but also experiences in the world. I strongly advocate having students in those, and I know they're hard to capture, so maybe offer a pizza here and there. And then thinking about, again, an intentional approach. And think big, start small is probably my last piece of advice, because there's a lot to do and not much time, and we're all busy people. So, hey, we're going to try to get this done this semester, and we feel we can do that.
Thank you. Did you have more to add, Kevin?
I do. Kevin always seems to spark some additional thoughts for me.
He's inspiring.
As well as you, Rodrigo. The trust thing is really sticking with me. The you now, the understanding, and understanding really, kind of how to move policy forward for the system, which we may have some policy experts in the room and others that are policy newbies. But it kind of has to start either with the inherent authority of the system, or maybe a legislated need or regulation that's been instituted into policy. So if we were to look at AI, putting AI literacy into policy, it might start with the inherent authority of the Chancellor's office to set the standards and the philosophy of our associate's degree. And in there, when you look into those titles, those sections of Title V that address those areas, you'll see that there's a philosophy statement about what our students should know generally. There's some very specific guidance around GE, but also some general guidance around numeracy and literacy. And these are, when I look at those, it reminds me of our institutional learning outcomes that most campuses have developed and have up on their website. So that's a place, and we might have information literacy or media literacy there, and kind of information, media, and AI/AI literacy. So that might be a place where this type of literacy really naturally slots in. So that could be part of the how. And I say that knowing that at the next consultation council, this is coming forward for sort of a general discussion of the different constituencies represented at the consultation council, and to discuss how do we kind of create that hook that lets colleges and districts know that AI literacy is part of the game, right? Is part of what students should be achieving when they exit our institutions as alum and enter the workforce. And I think probably people in this room are very well aware that AI skills are incredibly in demand in the workforce right now, and they're an important differentiator as to whether a student gets hired or not, or how much they get paid. There was a 400% increase in the incidence of AI skills being listed in job postings last year, in 1 year. And positions that include AI skills in the job description get paid on average, $18,000 more than those that don't, right? So that matters a lot. It matters deeply to our students and our alum and to us. Moreover, there was a survey that LinkedIn did of 30,000 plus employers and decision makers who said 67% of them said they wouldn't even consider hiring someone that didn't have AI skills. So that's, that is a call to action for us. So when you look at that, we realize this is a fundamental. This kind of it needs to be wrapped in at that level, and we need to have the dialogue about how that happens, right? And we're not trying to, push it, without the necessary dialogue, but I think we need to start having that conversation. And it begins with that, the conversation we're having here. I look forward to hearing, the questions and thoughts of folks in this room as well. So I'm going to be quiet, so there's some room for Q&A at the end of this.
Well, before we do that, I just want, because all of you have alluded to the idea that we are, that we have goals, right? We, as a system, we have goals, and we're building policies that move us toward those goals, and we don't want to have to rewrite those policies every 6 months and stuff. So what does responsible AI use look like in both the classroom and the workplace? What are we aiming for here?
I think fundamental understanding. One example that I can kind of point back to, and it's an early story, so bear with me here. We're going back to 2022, and ChatGPT has just emerged. And, I'm English professor, so I'm just kind of typing away, what is this doing? And the first thing that I did was put in my prompt for my essay. I was like, whoa. So then I said, I'm taking this into class tomorrow. And I put it in front of my students. I gave them a 20, 30-minute time frame. I said, please write a response to this right here. I said, great, nothing out of the ordinary, we're writing in class, great. And then I said, okay, now look. And I showed them. And they were like, what is this, professor? Why are you showing us this? Right? And that became the starting point for what was honestly like the best critical conversations that I've had in my class about authorship, writing, what is thinking, all of it. They were like, who's composing this then? And I had a student who, talk about making arguments, right, was very willing to argue that because she wrote the sentence that led to the output of the essay, that she was the person who wrote the essay. I was like, this is a moment for this literacy that we need. Like, no, you did not write the essay, but you did prompt it and you were happy with the output. Yeah. Now let's consider the output. And really, I teach English, but I like to say, rather, I teach rhetoric. And I think rhetoric is having a revival in this moment, because any new technology that has ever emerged, and that includes writing as a technology, we have to think about it through those rhetorical questions. And that saves you from the conversation of what happens when this new technology emerges, because new technologies always emerge. So we go at those new technologies with the same fundamental rhetorical critical questions, frame it for our students in that way, and trust me, they will have productive critical conversations. And yes, some will misuse the technology, absolutely. But we've heard great strategies here at the summit for how to mitigate that.
I love that phrase, the revival of rhetoric. Ooh, goosebumps there. Did you want to add anything, either Kevin or Craig? Or? It's up to you.
I'll pass.
Could you repeat the question, Lynn? I got caught up in what Rodrigo was saying.
You really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We're aiming for responsible AI use. We're writing policies to get us there. What is it? What does it look like? Where are we going with this?
Well, I think, a policy needs to be written in a way that's appropriate to the level, and that means it's general enough that it gives guidance, but it's not, we have, in our crazy, wonderful system, we have local control, right? So it's not going to be at a state level. It's not, it can be more directive, I suppose, but a lot of our policy is more about guidelines, right? It's about kind of establishing that conversation, saying, now go forth locally, have the conversation, decide for yourself. Do you want to adopt the humans' principles that have been kind of developed and promulgated by the AI Council. They're there for the taking. Do you need to develop your own version of that locally so it makes sense? You've got some refinements and tweaks to make, but you need something, right? Basically, it's saying you need something. It's a call to action, and then there's guidance and hopefully helpful guidance to make it happen in a timely fashion, because time is of the essence here. In that, students are, I assume many of us have read the articles about students entering the job market and kind of the entry-level rungs of that career ladder getting cut off in a lot of different professions. And so they need all the help they can get landing that first job and getting themselves going in their career trajectory. So there is a sense of urgency, but there's also agency, and there's a need to kind of step up and define that for yourselves in the context of your local community.
Great, thank you. So last question before we open it for Q&A from the audience, and that's a cue for you to start thinking what you're going to ask. What's off limits? What kind of things are out of bounds when it comes to AI use? What kind of things are we saying, no, that's not a ethical, appropriate, effective approach to using it?
I'll jump in there. And one of the things that we looked at as we were kind of reviewing the literature on AI literacy, the AI Council didn't invent the term AI literacy. There's a lot of research that had been done over the years into what that comprises, from 4 elements to 24 elements. And, we sort of settled on the 6 that are embodied in the humans principles as a good kind of distillation of the essence of the most important elements of AI literacy. One of the things we looked at that was informative, we had a pretty rich discussion, was the EU AI Act. And the EU AI Act, there was a similar legislation that came forward in California, and ultimately the governor didn't sign it. Because what was similar is it was a risk-based approach to AI, right? And, he didn't sign our version because it wasn't risk-based. The EU AI Act has a risk-based, so it was just sort of like lumped all AI together, the California version. But if you look at the EU AI Act, there's this pyramid kind of structure to it, and at the top is just unacceptable uses of AI. There's certain stuff you should not, it is not permissible, and no policy should allow. For instance, using AI to subliminally manipulate people. That's not okay, right? Like we don't support that. That's off limits. Other uses is kind of scooping up public video, audio feeds, and biometrically processing that without people's awareness, right? So those are kind of the 2 signature kind of unacceptable uses. Right under that, there's a high risk zone, and that's using AI for critical infrastructure. And high risk doesn't mean you can't use it, but it means there needs to be a human in the loop to break that cycle, and there's a rigorous sort of safety protocol in place to make sure that humans can kind of intercede. And guess what else is in there? Educational assessment and hiring and employment. So educational decisions and hiring decisions. So that means we shouldn't just be turning the keys over to whatever AI has been integrated into Canvas and say, grade my students, and I just set that class on autopilot, and I'll check in at the end when I have to submit the grades, right? That is not an ethical and appropriate. But it's fine to use. There's a lot of different ways to use those. I'm not saying don't do it, right? There's a lot of different ways to do that would be ethical, transparent, for instance, frequent. The ability to have frequent, low stakes assessment. The AI can empower that in a very helpful and useful way that can promote student learning. But it needs to be done mindfully, right, with an intentional pedagogical framework that the instructor is laying out, right? So it's, and that's, I think we're all in agreement with that. We're not trying to replace our, wonderful, magical educational experience that students have with human instructors with AI. But there are certainly applications of AI to that experience that are very helpful and can allow for more time for deeper conversations and human interaction that support engagement and learning. So I think that would be, kind of one example that's been helpful for me to think about what's off limits and what, needs strong guidelines and so on.
I had a couple thoughts. So Craig brought up a very specific set of use cases of things that have been identified, but we're always going to be behind the curve, right? Somebody's going to think of something we haven't thought of yet. Mm-hmm. And we have policies in place about student behavior, about faculty and staff behavior. We have handbooks and all these things. So really it boils down to like the culture of the institution. Are you doing something that you shouldn't be knowingly? And if you're doing something with unwittingly, then how do we educate you back in the literacy and fluency conversation? To your point about things like, hey, I'd love to use AI to give students feedback. Maybe, it's what I've suggested to some of the learning management system developers. Rather than making it a teacher-facing tool, make it a student-facing tool. In my class, I have always had peer review. It's a writing-intensive class, and I love the revival of rhetoric because I have to do that too. But I also now have students compare AI feedback to this human student feedback and what are the benefits that they get from both, what is each one missing, so they're actually reflecting on what feedback is and how to generate more valuable feedback for their peers. So there are ways that we as educators can be thinking about the implications of AI, and again, it's being intentional about it rather than, hey, there's this tool, I'm going to press a button and trust the results. What is the O is like observe and verify or something like that. So I'm going to get these acronyms if it kills me.
There's a lot to it.
And in the spirit of like modify them for your own college culture, I suggest nobody churn humans into robots because that's also 6 letters and probably not a good acronym. But you get my point, right? So the same way we can future-proof policies, we can also future-proof our approaches by thinking kind of at a deeper level. How are we asking students to behave in our campus community? How do we take less of a risk-based approach and more of an asset-based approach and say, hey, you're bringing your strengths, we want you to capitalize on those and use them in ways that are appropriate. And we're going to have open conversations about it. So to your point about grading again, I had a conversation with my students in an online class. What do you all think about AI in the teaching and learning context? And the highest liked responses were, I don't like it when other students use AI to write their papers because I took the time to write mine. And I don't like it when teachers use AI to grade my papers because I'm paying tuition and I want to get the value of the expert in the room who I chose as my instructor. And so the students, I know there's a lot of concern about what could go wrong, but the students are aware of those things as well and are thinking intelligently about it. And so if we just have candid conversations with them about what's appropriate, I think we can not worry so much about let's make a list of things that are not approved and more let's all work together to get this done.
Building a culture of trust.
Yeah,
trust is the acronym.
Yes, happy to follow up those great responses with a single sort of idea that I've come to. It's that the only thing that is not allowed in my class as far as AI is relegating your thinking or your agency to the machine. That's it. So let me actually go through my AI policy so you understand exactly why, though, it's sort of built into the policy itself, and you can see how each one of these 3 bullet points addresses that very fact. So number 1, if you provide, first, AI is one of the emerging Web3 tools that promises to shake up both academia and the professional landscape. Regardless of how you feel about it, learning to use it well is an emerging and valuable skill. Let's start there, right? That being said, you can expect to use AI in my classes, ChatGPT, Midjourney at a minimum. Now, please be aware. 1, if you provide minimum prompts, you will get low-quality results. You will need to refine your prompts in order to achieve better outcomes. This will take work. So again, weak outputs, you got to work at them. Right? We've heard a lot of that actually today about how prompting and refining is a good thing to teach. Number 2, don't trust anything. AI, in this case ChatGPT, says, assume facts it gives you are wrong unless you know the answer or can check it with another source. You will be responsible for any errors or omissions provided by the tool. It works best for topics you understand. And 3, Any use of AI tools must be acknowledged, going back to the transparency. Please be sure to include a paragraph at the end of any assignment that uses AI, explaining what you used it for and the specific prompts you used to get your results. Failure to do so is in violation of academic honesty policies. So the idea there was, I heard that now we have the MLA and APA giving us citation methodologies, which is great. At the time, there wasn't any. So it's like, how about you just cite your inputs or your outputs as part of your works cited? Because now you know you can export those. So give me the input and the output that you used, add that as an addendum to your work, and we're good to go. There is inherent trust there. So do not relegate your thinking to the machine is all I would say, agentic or not.
I love that policy. Do you mind if we steal it?
It's in the list of the, who put it together?
Lance Eaton.
Lance Eaton's list. It's number 76 if you want to find mine.
Yeah, I don't know if you all know about it, but Lance Eaton has compiled policies from faculty all over is it just the country or the
Everywhere.
world?
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
And how many are in there now? Like
There's at least
1,000?
150 or something.
150,
Yeah,
okay.
it's tons.
So
130.
there's some great examples in there of from all different disciplines and so if you're looking for inspiration for your own policy, that was a great policy. Okay, so what do you guys think is best? If we make closing statements and then take questions, or take questions and then make closing statements? Questions first? Questions first? Okay, there's some hands up. Okay, I'm gonna get up here and steal somebody's mic. Thank you, Kevin. Is it on? Great. Testing, testing. Okay, where's a hand? Here, I'll be right back.
Man, I have so much to say after all that, but I will limit what I have to say. I'm with you. I'm an English professor, and I also started adapting it in my courses pretty quickly after 2022. But I'm also helping to craft our AI policies on our campus, and I use PlayLab in my classes. And recently, in my last few semesters, I spend time on AI literacy, even though it's an English course, and about prompting. And I asked them after I assessed their, whatever they thought of that AI literacy bit that I gave them. And they took away, which I thought was kind of impressive, that their critical thinking skills, who they are, is the most important skill they don't want to lose to ChatGPT or whomever or whatever. So that's good. So I'm a proponent, and I'm trying to work with my faculty and train my students, and et cetera. But the one thing that I am concerned about is, earlier you mentioned about the models sounding like a white male, right? And I do spend some time in my AI literacy portion about not to trust the machine, to verify, check, et cetera. And I show a little clip about how really it can cross lines in terms of not representing everybody, especially certain groups that are underrepresented. So my concern is, as we move forward and we're making these deals with the vendors, and that's great, we have all these tools and everything, I feel like we're piling on top of everything, all these wonderful tools, yes, but on the baseline foundational model. And are we ever going to go backwards and go back to the training part of it and try to make that more diverse? I don't know the answer. I'm just curious.
I would say that one of the ways that you can deal with some of the bias, because of course we know AI, how it works, right? It works off of the data sets that you feed it, is by being very intentional with your prompting. So one example that I can use from the visual space mainly is I have a lot of caricatures of myself that I make for my professional development. So if you see one of my professional development, you'll see a little avatar of me wearing a jacket. Anyway, to make that, I didn't want to insert a picture of myself, upload a picture of myself. It was early on in the conversation where I was like, I don't know if I want to upload personal things, personal names, personal anything. So I said, give me a picture of a professor teaching a class. Well, that's too general. Then I said, give me a picture of a professor with a beard, glasses, brown skin. Nailed it. If you think of it that way, then again, you can control the outputs because you're aware of how it works. It generalizes knowledge in a very specific way. so you can ask for more specific outputs, is how I sort of turn to that. It's you can't avoid going back to train the initial model to have this data or whatever, but you can work with smaller data set models like NotebookLM. You can create your own open source ones that can have limited knowledge. You can do things sort of to circumvent that, but it's a very big issue, and I think really having that exact conversation with them is the best thing.
And if I can tack on to that, so I think that it becomes part of the AI literacy conversation and fluency when we're supporting students, even if we could, and it's a great idea to have the California community colleges create their own LLM. Other institutions are doing it. I'm pretty sure, and Craig will check me if I'm wrong, that the Google agreement is in enterprise level data protections, and it's not going to be used to train any models. But it does mean that we're using the one that they have now, and so we need to train students to use the models not only that they're going to use when they're at our institutions, but that they're going to use when they're out in the workforce, because they're going to encounter AI that's biased at some way, shape, or form, and we want them to be able to know what to do with that. And it gets back to the verify, but also in the humans, it's the algorithmic bias. How are we telling our students to consider that when they look at the results and make adjustments for it so that they're producing something that they believe represents them and their communities and everybody else that they believe is part of their network.
Yeah, and sorry, what college were you? Napa Valley College, okay. And what's your name? Kathy. Thanks. And so, Kathy, I think Rodrigo said that you mentioned NotebookLM, and one of the things you could do is to basically call it a RAG plus LLM, which is retrieval augmented generation. It means you upload your own sources to it, and then you can focus the attention of the LLM on those sources first. So there's different, like NotebookLM lets you do, or lets you do that. Nectar AI lets you do that. You can create custom GPTs and ChatGPT that let you do that. And then that way you can kind of you can surface that kind of the perspective and the voices that you want to make sure are represented in the output. So that's a nice kind of tool that you have available to make sure that you're kind of surfacing the perspectives that need to be included in the conversation with the AI.
Okay, we have another question here.
Thank you. Thank you for this panel. I wanted to ask about resistance to conceptualizing agency in artificial intelligence. In other words, not just skepticism, but outright refusal to consider this new technology, relatively new technology, as part of their work. To frame it, I taught for a number of years at a mountain village in southern Africa, where we didn't have electricity or running water or mimeograph machines. Our technology consisted of chalk. And then to frame it one more further, and I'd like your perspectives on this resistance. In a Socratic dialogue, writing will produce the appearance of wisdom, not true wisdom, for they will seem to know many things when they are for the most part ignorant, since they are not wise, but only appear wise. So even writing and printing presses and every calculators, remember that Texas Instruments was the death of mathematics, right? So tell me about this outright resistance, a layer beyond skepticism.
So I think with any technology innovation, there's an entire adoption curve, if you're familiar with it, by Rogers, where you have early adopters, early majority, a late majority, and then the tail end, which people use sometimes derogatory terms. Resistors might be one. When I first started in faculty development, I had an instructor who had a printed out typewritten sheet that students would handwrite their attendance, and we were talking to him about different strategies he could use that would be easier, less work, and he's like, I will never get a computer. This is, back when people were getting desktops and such. And 2 years after he retired, I saw him at the bookstore using his alumni pass to get a computer. And I said, what convinced you to finally make the change? And he goes, my grandson wanted to email me. So it's finding out what's meaningful for the people who are resisting and what is causing the resistance. I said earlier today, I really feel like I should have started with a psychology degree in this field, because we need to understand the underlying motivations or lack of motivation for people to at least have conversations. We're not asking everybody to do this. We're making it opt-in, right, at the institution level and at the human level. And so those resistors are going to exist. We want their voices in the conversation if they're willing to participate. But at some point, as we've already said, it's here, and we need to keep moving forward. So we hope you'll join us as kind of an invitation.
Pretty much says it, right?
I would say I have a very easy sort of answer to this, because I teach writing and rhetoric to my students. So when they are reluctant, I'm like, okay, cool, reluct away. because all that means is we're going to focus on syntax and grammar and sentences and complex structures and meaning making. And that inherently will make you a good prompter. That's the default, though. Don't worry about it, right? That's not what we're focusing on. We're going to focus on just composition and communication. So they are reluctant in my class sometimes. And despite my policy, I say, you don't want to use it? That's okay. It's fine. But you should know that others will, and that there is jobs that are now demanding it, and that you are now in this conversation, this thing that's here, whether you want it to or not, and you better prepare yourself, because we've all heard that quote, I'm sure. Now, the AI will not replace you, but someone using AI will. And I see that happening more and more. Just people, Fabi earlier was talking about how capitalism just keeps putting more work in front of you, right? But definitely we can do more work with the help of AI, but that shouldn't be the goal.
Thank you so much for this panel. Steve Lasowski, professor of nursing at Hartnell Community College. I just wanted to share two real quick experiences that I had a little bit along the lines of what you were talking about with administrators and that kind of thing. A different perspective that came to me was I'm one of the few people at my college who's using AI, and what was interesting was the perspective of the teacher. In other words, how it changed my perspective about how I taught. Kind of to what you were saying, Rodrigo, about prompts, but not only prompts to the AI, but in prompting the AI, how that helped me actually engage with the students better in terms of discussion and that kind of thing, that looking for the quote unquote right answer. And then the other thing that you all spoke of was this kind of interesting pervasiveness of, I've gone to a couple AI conferences now that often focus on the catching the student type thing, the cheating, paradigm. And I think one of you said, Rodrigo, I think it was you said that the students are almost more aware of the situation than we can be. And I had a student who used Grammarly, and so she had this amazing paper, and her conversational tactics were significantly different. So I just mentioned it to her, and in person, and she said, oh, well, I use Grammarly. And I said, oh, okay, well, as of right now, we have a policy that we can't use AI. So I said, okay, well, did you use AI? No, I used Grammarly. And I said, well, I think Grammarly now uses AI, kind of thing. She was absolutely terrified. Like, the concept, it wasn't that she was trying to cheat. She was literally falling apart, that she was going to get dropped from the program. And I was like, no, that's not what we're talking about. But my point is to what a lot of you have said, we bring, like anything, a bias to this new technology. And I think it's not only important for us as we develop these policies, we need to be aware of our own biases that we're bringing to the table.
Absolutely. And just to kind of follow up your point there, I'm doing far more work now that AI is here than before it was here. So the whole idea of how it frees up your time and all that, I don't think so.
So true. So I think I've been showing a bias for that side of the room. So here we've got some questions over here.
I just have a question and a comment. I'll start with my comment first. I took a AI class for business, and it really opened my eyes to look at it from a very different perspective. And I know we have focused a lot on English, but one of the things that this course did is that it gave us videos of industry leaders and what they expected from their employees. And very often, they were wanting the employees to use AI to write reports. And so that was something that was very interesting, because I'm like, well, we're in higher ed and we're telling students not to do that. But here we have industry that's saying this is what they're going to need to do, the report. And even in the medical field, it was just amazing to see how AI is saving lives. And I kind of reflected on being stuck. You know, we're stuck in these spots, and a lot of our conversation is focused on what do we have to do to prevent all of these other things from happening. So I just want to challenge us to really focus on, including myself, to really focus on how we can embrace it and really empower our students to use it, because the fear factor is there for our students, even in our syllabus. If we say you can use it, but here's all these, you know, specifications as to, or limitations. And so I also teach sometimes, and I was looking at my own syllabus, and I looked back and I was like, all I could see is like, no, 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 versus in order to maximize your learning, this is what you have to do. So just really kind of being reflective on that. And so I appreciate all of the points that everyone has brought up, because it's just sparked more ambition to try to continue to do that work. And my second part has to do with kind of bigger pieces, institutional policies. There was conversation earlier on about data governance. Are there best practices? Are there models out there for institutions? Because we are just piecemealing different pieces, and it would be great for us to have some of that guidance so that we can help guide teachers, but also our overall administrative structures and how employees can use them, because our employees are already using them all the time, and whether they're purchasing them with the Cal card or whether they have the free version, you know, they're out there. And so, and then the last piece that I just want to emphasize, and I don't know if anyone from the Chancellor's office is here, is just getting consistency in funding for these software products, because there's so much out there. And it's almost like the iPhone and the Android, you know, but now we have all these other options, and it can be very overwhelming, especially when administration has to make difficult decisions on what type of funding or what type of tool and technology. The dollars matter in different spaces, so I just wanted to emphasize that. But any samples or examples on best practices for governance would be appreciated.
So I can start that conversation. The same way that you demonstrated a list of syllabus policies, a gentleman named Joe Sabato from UC Santa Barbara has put together a comprehensive analysis of around 200 policies at the campus level at colleges and universities, and I think there's a write-up, so I'll see if I can find that, but that would be a place to start. And there are other repositories of institution-level policies, and so I don't know if there's going to be show notes for this panel or something in the schedule, but we can work with the organizers of this conference to make sure that there's a place to get things that were mentioned. Oh, go ahead.
I'm looking at the time, and I'm seeing people bail on us, and I don't blame them. So and I know that there were more hands up and there were more questions. So I don't know if you are willing to hang out for a little bit and let people come up and ask you questions. Is that okay for each of you? Okay, so if you still have questions for the panelists, we're willing to hang out a bit. But in the meantime, do you want to make like a 30-second closing statement and pass it on?
So my closing statement is I'm in a session in 15 minutes, so I'm going to ask you to email me your questions, kkelly@cccdigitalcenter.org, or just come find me. I'm the guy wearing this jacket, and we'll have a chat. But it's been a privilege to have this conversation in front of you. I know it would be nice if we can have more of it with you. And but this is a topic that is, like AI itself, not going to go away. We need to be thinking about across an institution, what does adoption mean, and how can we be out in front of it?
Thank you.
Closing statement, 30 seconds. We are launching a new AI microsite, which is going to collect our AI resources and be a new, kind of have some new functionality, including promoting AI professional development. So having, amazing new tools like, the Notebook LM and, the pro version of Gemini is great, but you do need to understand, things like data governance and, prompting ethically and responsibly. And so that will be a place where we're going to surface both the amazing work, because there's such a diversity of cool work happening on AI around the state regionally. So connecting that regional effort to the state level effort, and leveraging our newly launched AI Fellows program to help us sort of coordinate that work regionally and make that visible. So keep an eye out for that new, that launch of that new site. Should be launching later this month around the same time that first AI webinar is happening on Tuesday, September 30th. So also look for the flyer invite, and please, if you're available, join that. It's a good opportunity. There's a lot of Q&A and really smart people that are involved in AI that you can interact with there, online in real time, and as well as just follow up via email. And if you need to contact me, I am at the Chancellor's office. My email is chayward@cccco.edu. And thank you very much for spending this time this afternoon with us. I really enjoyed hearing everyone's questions, and appreciate that opportunity.
Closing statement. Thank you guys for having me. I loved talking to you about all of these things that I've done in my classroom. I know they're a little bit crazy sometimes, a little bit scary to try new technologies, but students are ready for these conversations. So I would say take this back with you to your regions, stand up to be those leaders that we need in those regions, and then you can come up and sit in the panel here, and I'll sit over there watching, taking notes when you guys are talking.
Yeah.
So just literally get involved in the conversation. You're already here. So just take it back, extend from here, and thank you guys again.
And thank you for coming. This is the leading edge thinkers right here. Look around you.